So good morning once again to everyone. So you guys know when we start off, we are going to start with basically recapping what we did in the last class. So just some few brief questions, and then we get started with what we have with today. So we were looking at the computer, the components of a computer. How many components of a computer does a computer have? How many major components? And what are they? What are the components of a computer and what are they?
Sir, there are three.
Three. What are the three?
Hardware, software, and humanware.
Where did she go? Wasn't Italy the one telling us the answer? Yes, Italy. And she left again. I just wanted to know where she got the last one from. 'Cause She is correct. She is correct about the first two. First two is hardware and software. So we're looking at two basic components of the computer, hardware and software. How many categories does hardware have?
So five.
Five categories, correct. And what are the five categories of hardware?
The CPU.
Are the CPU, input devices, output devices, memory, storage.
Very good, very good. So those are the five.
And for storage, it could be storage memory or storage devices.
Storage media. Good. So each of those five categories, they further break down into the categories. Good. So what is a peripheral device?
A device is controlled by the CPU, but it is not within the CPU or
Very
in the
good.
motherboard, I guess.
Very good. That's very good. So it is controlled by the CPU and it's not inside of the CPU. So basically anything connected to your computer, that is a peripheral device. Good. So the other category is software. Software has how many types of software are there?
Two.
Two types of software. Very good. What are the two types of software?
System and
System
application.
and application.
Very good. So we have system and application software. Those are the two types of software that we have. And system software has two categories also. What are the two?
Operating and utility.
Operating and utility. So operating system, OS, and utility software. Which one is the main one? Operating system or utility?
Operating system.
Operating system. Very good. So that's why when persons say software has two categories, system and application, but when most persons say system software, they also say operating system. the operating system is the main category of that system software. So that's why most times when you hear system software, persons today we think of the operating system, because the utility software is just basically there to help the operating system. Good. And then we have application software out here. Good. Very good. So let's look at those questions that I gave you guys for homework. Let's see what answers you guys got for your homework. Let's see, where can I get a list? Tree A, tree A, tree A. Good. So I'm gonna call your name one by one, and you just give me the answer to the question that I am asking. So we basically already looked at what is data, what is information, but some of you didn't complete that, so that's why I added it in back. Now we're gonna look at number 3. List 10 examples of computers. So Alian, just give me one example.
Sir, laptop.
Laptop, good. Zoom out. Asifa, give me another one. Asifa. If you don't have another example of question number 3. I didn't hear that clearly. A server, good. Chance or Chancey.
Sir, handheld computers.
Handheld computers, okay. Christian,
Sir, a tablet.
tablet, good. Um, Don,
Sir, smartphone.
smartphone, good. Fazil,
European consoles.
we didn't hear you, Fazil.
European consoles.
Still, I don't know if anybody else hearing him, but we're not here. I'm not hearing.
So I think you said game consoles.
Okay.
Sir?
If that is so, that is correct. What number are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we at 6. So 7. Balkisun, what example do you have for question number 3? Balkisun,
Sir,
an example for question
Sir.
number 3.
are you hearing me?
I hear you.
Sir, I got personal computers, desktop, laptops, tablet.
Okay, that's one we did it. Good. Alright, let's move on to the next question. So, list 10 peripheral devices. Brittany, can you give me one?
Sir, the keyboard.
Good. Govinda, Govinda,
Sir, a printer.
good. Irshad, Irshad?
Sir, during classes, he normally have problems with his mic.
You can type the answer. Type your answer, Irshad. Italy?
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes.
A mouse?
A mouse, good. Italy, I was wondering where you got that third answer from earlier.
Sir, I was guessing.
For future reference, if your microphone is not working and you know that I'm going to come to you with a question, just type it in the chat. Irshad, Jaden, printer, good. Jaden, Jaden. Seems they're gonna start kicking some of you out and then marking you absent. Jewels,
Sir, webcam.
webcam, that's correct. Jaden's answer of a joystick, that is correct. Lenacia,
Sir, I just joined, so I'm not sure what we're doing. Which question are we at?
we're at question number 4. Let's give me one example.
Keyboard?
Keyboard, good. So those are some examples of peripheral devices. All that were mentioned are correct. We're at question number 5 now. Give me one example of an operating system. Michaela. Nathan.
Sir, Android.
Android, that is correct.
Windows.
Windows, good. What version of Windows? Yeah.
Sir, Chrome.
Chrome, just Chrome. Just Chrome you got?
OS, Chrome OS.
Yes, that is it. That is the correct full name, Chrome OS. So, excuse me, Nia.
Fedora.
What was that one? Fedora?
Yes, sir.
Fedora. Oh, that's a version of Linux. Okay, good. Omarion.
Sir, Apple iOS.
Apple iOS, good. Onalicia,
Sir, a Mac OS.
good. Samir,
Linux.
good. And lastly, Sarah,
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu, very good. So what you guys can do for those examples of operating systems that you have, you can categorize them because operating systems work on different devices, but usually you can categorize them as desktop-based operating system and mobile operating system. So once it works on a mobile device, like a phone or a tablet, it's going to be considered a mobile operating system. So like Android, iOS, Chrome OS, those work on mobile devices. Whereas Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Ubuntu, Fedora, all of those, they are desktop based operating systems. Good. So, what are 10 examples now of a utility software? Shane, give me one example. Shane, Leah, Arlen.
Sir, file management.
File management. That's the name of the software or what it does.
File management system.
Okay, I think that is more of what it does. I was looking for the name of the unless that's the actual name of the application. Okay, seems as though it's an application name, file management, not file management system. Either way, continuing, Trinity. We're barely hearing you. Anybody heard her? You can type it in the chat.
C cleaner.
Yes, that's correct. C cleaner. Toleram.
Sir, key finder.
T finder.
Key.
Key finder. What does it do? Retrieves your product key. Sounds like it can work. Who are we at? Tulsiram.
Sir, this management tool.
This, I didn't hear the last part. This what?
Disk management tools.
Okay, good. And we go back to the top. Aquila Davidson. Example of utility software. Aquila. I realized I should have broken down this and I realized I should have broken down this utility software. I was supposed to ask for what are examples of antivirus backup software and recovery software. That was supposed to be the question. Alright. For utility software, for you to get correct examples of utility software, you're gonna look for where can I type? You're gonna look for examples of antivirus, backup software, and recovery software, and that's going to give you examples of utility software, correct examples. Antivirus software. So look for those 3 examples. You could that's homework for next class, so you can take that down. Yes, because the utility software, it's there to support the operating system, to help it. And based on the notes that we have, the paragraph, the utility software can be used to protect against viruses, so that's antivirus, making backup, and recovering files. So that is antivirus, backup software, and recovery software. So if you get at least five examples of each of these here, you will get 15 basically examples of utility software. Alright, so continuing, list 10 examples of application software now. So Akila, we're still at you. We didn't hear you for the first one. Akila, are you there? Team, you don't have Akila. Alian?
Sir, word processing software.
Good, very good. Asifa? Balkisun?
Sir, Firefox 10, Adobe Shockwave Player.
Good. Brittany?
Sir, Google Chrome.
Good. Ijaz? Nathan? Ijaz? An example of application.
Google Chrome.
Good. Omarian? Raphael? Omarian and Raphael?
Sir, Skype.
Skype? Good.
Sir, Microsoft
Microsoft what?
Excel.
Good. Good. So those are some examples of application software. I did not hear from Ijaz. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so let's continue. So that is basically the homework that you guys were supposed to why is my screen not open? You guys were supposed to complete. So it's very important for you to know examples of basically all that I gave you there for exam purposes especially. So ensure you complete this also because that can give you correct examples for utility software. And other than that, so I'm assuming every one of you is in a group for you to complete your assignment for next week, Monday. Any of you not in a group? Alright, seems as though everyone is okay. I don't have any issues to resolve in terms of those groups. Do you have any questions on the assignment? No. Any,
Sir, you said next Monday?
yes, Monday that's coming.
Excuse me, sir. Do we have to present it or do we just have to hand it in?
You just submit it, you just hand it in. Judith, yeah, your Judith is no, not next Monday. But I thought that it was Monday. October 13th. Why do I have?
Sorry, 13th October.
Yeah, that's incorrect. It's supposed to be 6th. I'm fixing that now. It's supposed to be a 1 week assignment, a week and a few days. Actually, 2 weeks. You got it since last week, but a week and something basically. So October 6th, next week Wednesday, that's your due date for submission there. Good. Any other concerns, questions before we go on to our new topic? Anything you need clarification on? It's a simple assignment. Just take your time, answer the questions. Don't over explain, don't add too much content. I just want you to go straight to the point, simple, straight to the point, but yet still the answer must be sufficient to answer the question. So yes, it's going to be simple, but at the same time, it must clearly define the question or clearly define what it is asking of you. So don't worry about copying and pasting a whole bunch of information. That is going to take away from you answering the question. So careful with that. Use appropriate pictures. What else? And ensure your presentation is neat, it is clean, it is presentable, it is professional. That is one of the aim of this assignment also, to learn how to create professional PowerPoints. So basically after the assignment, when you guys submit, I will also review it and give you some pointers on how to create effective PowerPoints. But I'm not going to give it now because I want to see what is your idea of a PowerPoint presentation. Good, so if no questions, we have concluded chapter 1.1, basic computer components, and we are going to be starting chapter 1.2. Now in this chapter, we are going to be focusing on the second category of hardware, and that is input devices and media. So we're going to be looking at the different types of input devices and what devices fall under those categories. So we're going to be looking at a lot of input devices in this chapter here. So to get us started, give me a second, let me check this file. Okay, so let's try last reader. So we'd like a reader for the first 3 paragraphs, and we are going to have Chance. Can you read that for us?
Data must be provided in a suitable form for any computer system to be able to process it. So it is always important to think of the different ways of entering data into a computer, particularly since all data needs to be entered as accurately as possible. Input means to enter data, programs, commands, and user responses into the memory of a computer. Therefore, an input device is any device that transfers data from the outside world into a computer. Shall I continue?
Yes.
Although most input devices can be connected to desktop computers, you probably come across others and do not realize it. For example, every time you use a remote control for a television or games console, data is entered using a special keyboard. There are many different input devices and media, each one suitable for a different purpose. The 2 general categories of input devices are manual input devices and direct data entry, or DDE devices.
Very good. So, as mentioned, we are looking at input devices, and we basically had an idea from the first chapter what was input devices. Basically getting data into the computer. Now, there are different ways of entering data into your computer, but whenever you're entering data into the computer, the what you're aiming for basically is to enter the data as accurately as possible. So we have different ways of entering data into the computer, but we always need to ensure the data is entered accurately. And that's the reason why we have different ways of entering data, because some might be more effective than others depending on the situation. So that's why we have so many different input devices. So what does it mean to input? Well, it basically means to enter either data, enter programs, enter commands, enter user responses, and notice where it's going: into the memory of the computer. So whatever you enter into the computer goes to the memory. Can anybody tell me why it goes to the memory? Anybody has an idea?
So the next step can be carried out. Processing.
Very good, very good. Anybody else want to add to that? Remember our diagram of the computer. We have the CPU, we have memory, and even though at the bottom here we have our hard drive, which stores all of our data that we are entering, even though it permanently stores our data, our music file, our whatever the case may be, it still has to go into memory, because your CPU needs to tell memory to put it into the hard drive. That's how your CPU is going to control your computer. It looks at what is inside of the memory. So that's how it will instruct that piece of data: look, store yourself onto the hard drive. Or it pulls that piece of music from the hard drive to memory, and that is how it can play the music. So that is why it goes into the memory for that processing stage, as Sarah mentioned. Very good. So once again, I hope you guys are taking your notes. We have different ways of entering data, and the main fact that we look at for entering data is that it must be accurate. And what does it mean to enter data? What does it mean to input? It means to enter data, programs, commands, user responses into the memory of the computer. So in a nutshell, or to summarize everything, an input device transfers data from the outside world into the computer. So that's a nutshell description there. It transfers data from the outside world into the computer, or basically whatever is outside of the computer into the computer. That is input, and that is the purpose of input devices. Now, today we actually use a lot of input devices, and we actually don't even realize it. Input devices, as mentioned, their purpose is to get data into the system, into the computer. So for example, a remote control for your television, that is an input device. When you press a button on that remote, it is actually sending a signal to your television as input. Your television is going to process that signal, and it acts as an input to control the television. You press the power button, that signal gets sent to the TV, it processes that signal, and it knows that it needs to turn on. When you're playing a game, when you move the joystick, or when you press the A button to make the character to jump, that signal is sent to the game console. it processes that signal and it moves the character however you would have controlled that keyboard, that game controller. So one thing to take note of is that these devices here that you are basically pressing buttons on, your TV remote, your game console controller, they are called special keyboards. It's very important to remember. So just like how on your phone, on your laptop, your desktop, you have a keyboard where you can press buttons. If you think about it, those TV remote and controllers, they're actually functioning the same way. You're pressing buttons. But just that, it doesn't look like the normal keyboard that you have on your devices. So that is why they're called special keyboards, because they have a different pattern compared to the regular keyboards that we are using today. But they basically function the same way. When you press a key, it is sent to the computer, it processes it, and it carries out whatever instruction that signal is supposed to be doing. So if you guys think about it, there are other input devices in your home that you actually use. Can you guys think of any?
Sir, television.
Yes. But remember, we're looking at the input devices. So what aspect of the television is input?
Sir, remote.
Good. But other than the television remote and your game controller, anything in your home?
Sir, the keypad and microwave.
Exactly. Keypad on your microwave. That is an input. So you have to press those keys on the keypad on your microwave to input the time, to tell it to start. Good. Any other example?
Sir, the fan, like when you got press the remote.
Right. Good. Some fans have a remote. Very good. What about your car? Does your car have an input device? Or your parents' car?
Sir,
Go
would
ahead.
the key be one? The key for the car?
Not the key, but when you're locking up the car, what do you do?
So you either use
Sir,
the key
our
or the
key has a
keypad.
remote and just have to press the button and
The
it
car,
locks.
the remote.
Right. So some vehicles, if they set them up with a car alarm, then when you press that button on that keyboard or that remote, it either locks the car or it opens the car or it even starts up the car. So that is another form of input. It's sending a signal to the computer in the car and it is processing it. Good. So we have your microwave, your fan that has a remote, your car alarm remote. For those that have AC, some ACs have a remote. So those are all examples of input devices, and they're more specifically a special keyboard. Now, when it comes to input devices, as mentioned, they're used for different purposes. Because if you think about it, the car alarm remote, or say for example your microwave, all of you should have a microwave, hopefully, in your home. And so your microwave has that keypad, and your computer has a keyboard. Do you think it makes sense to put the keyboard that your computer has on the microwave? Will that make sense?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, it won't make sense because in the first place, you don't need to type anything. All you need to do is just put in time and you start the microwave. Even the other additional buttons, sometimes we don't even use it. Defrost and whatever else the rest name. Sometimes we don't even use
Cook.
it. And exactly. We don't even use it and it's there. So that's the point. When it comes to input, there are different ways that we can input. There are different reasons for input. So not all input devices are going to work for each situation. So that's why we have different input devices that are going to work for different purposes. They're designed exactly for that purpose. Like for example, your game controller, your car alarm remote, they're designed specifically for those purposes. So each input device, we have different input devices and they have different purposes. Now, when it comes to input devices, as I mentioned, there are two categories. So our first category is manual input devices. And our second category is direct data entry devices. So if we were to add that to our diagram, let me see if we can find it. Got it. So if we add that to our diagram, so 2 is input device, then let me change the color so we can see the difference. Then input device is going to branch off to 1 manual input devices, manual input devices, and then we have, let me get some space, we need some space. Manual input device, and then 2 direct data entry devices. So those are 2 categories of input devices: manual input device and direct data entry device. Alright, are you guys following so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. Anybody with any questions? Anybody confused? Anybody wants me to go over anything before we continue? Alright, no questions? Any comments, suggestions, recommendations? Alright, so the first category we're going to look at is manual input devices. We're going to look at what is a manual input device, and then we're going to look at what are some devices that fall under that category. So, what is a manual input device? Well, basically, as it mentions here, with a manual input device, you must enter or transfer data into the computer yourself. Or what I like to do, I like to ask persons to give me a definition of this word manual. When you hear the word manual, what comes to mind? What do you think of? When you hear something is manual,
Relating to or done with your hands.
good, it's being done with your hands. But if one of your friends say that this thing is manual, what comes to your mind?
You have to set it up yourself.
Good, you have to set it up yourself.
Or you have to guide it.
You have to guide it. Good. So basically, it's something that you have to do yourself. When normally you hear something is manual, it means that you have to go and do it. you have to go and operate it. So it's the same with manual input devices. When you hear manual input device, think of this first word here. What does manual mean? It means that you have to go and operate the device. So you must enter or transfer the data. So you have to do something to transfer that data. So let's look at some examples to get a better idea. Excuse me. A better idea as to how manual input devices work. So the first paragraph, Christian, can you read that for us? Keyboard and keypad.
Yes, sir. A keyboard has a set of alphabet keys, a set of digit keys, and various function keys. So the data entered by the person operating the keyboard is in the form of individual letters, words, or numbers. When you press a key on the keyboard, a number or code is sent to the computer to tell it which key you have pressed. The keyboard has the disadvantage that it is easy to make mistakes by pressing the wrong keys.
Good. So we have a keyboard here. And let's continue with the other paragraph. Don, can you read for us the other paragraph?
Okay, sir. Other special keyboards designed to do just one job can be found on children's toys, games consoles, and programmable robots used in primary schools. The keyboard could be a picture of a farmyard. Pressing on an animal would cause the computer to make the noise of the animal. A keypad is a block of buttons that contain digits, symbols, or alphabetical letters. Keypads can also be found on many keyboards.
Good. So let's go from the top. So even if you don't have a physical computer, you can basically get an idea as to what a keyboard looks like because you have a device. That virtual keyboard that you see on your phone, on your tablet, it's an idea of a keyboard. It is a set of alphabet keys, it has some digit keys, some function keys, and so on, so that when you press a key on that keyboard, a number code or basically a signal is sent to the computer, and the computer processes that button that was pressed, and whatever the button was, it carries out the function of that button. So if you think about it, if you do not press a key on the keyboard, will anything appear on the screen?
No, sir.
No. If you do not press a key on the keyboard, if you go to the microwave and you put the food in the microwave and you don't press the buttons on the microwave to put in the time to start the microwave, don't expect to be eating hot food at lunchtime. So you need to operate the keyboard in order for data to be entered or transferred. Now, what is the disadvantage of a keyboard? Well, basically, you can accidentally press the wrong keys, and a lot of us should be familiar with that. We accidentally press keys on the keyboard, we mistype. Even on our phones, we mistype a lot, and it's very easy for that to happen. Now, as mentioned, we also have special keyboards. So the keyboard they're talking about at the top here refers to the regular keyboard that we get with a computer, a desktop, a laptop, and so on. Now, special keyboards are designed for just one job. They have one purpose. For example, a children's toy. So that child's toy is going to have maybe a picture of an animal or a button with a picture of an animal on it. And when you press that button with that specific picture, the sound of that animal is going to be played. So it's designed, so that is the keyboard. You're pressing a button. The fact that you're pressing that button makes it a keyboard. But it's a special keyboard because it doesn't function like the regular keyboard. Because when you press that sound, when you press that key, you get the sound of an animal. Same for a game console controller. The purpose of that controller is to move within that game console, to navigate the menu, to navigate the character, and so on. So it's designed for that purpose. It's not designed for typing in a Word document, to type a letter, and so on. So those are special keyboards. So your car alarm remote, your TV remote, your AC remote, your fan remote, those are all special keyboards. They're designed for that one job. Now a keypad is basically like, you can say it's a miniaturized keyboard. It is a block of buttons that has digits, symbols, and alphabets. So if you were to not seeing an image there, so if we were to search for image, some keyboards actually have a keypad at the end of it. So this here is an example of a keypad. It has numbers, it has letters, some have like this one here, some have symbols on it that you can use. So it's actually what is at the end of some larger keyboards. Let's see if we can find the image of it. Right. Just like this example here. So at the very end here, this white area here, that is the keyboard part there. The keypad part there. So the entire image is your keyboard with all the alphabet keys, the number keys, the function keys at the top here. So these buttons at the top that you see starting with an F, those are called function keys. So please take note of that. The buttons that start with an F, those are called function keys. So we have digit keys and we have alphabet keys. And at the very end here is our keypad. And as you saw, some can be separate, some can be a part of the keyboard. It's basically made up of numbers, symbols, some have alphabets, and so on. But the main purpose of them is to function as a form of input. To either enter numbers, to navigate, or whatever they were built for. Good, so that is our first manual input device. Remember, we're looking at manual input device. You have to press those keys on the keyboard manually to enter data. So next we're going to look at the mouse. How is the mouse a manual input device? So we're at... you guys said Ejaz has microphone problem? Or was it him?
It wasn't him, sir. It was Irshad.
Ejaz, can you read for us? Ejaz, are you there? Please note that if you do not respond at any time, it can be considered that you are absent. Fazil,
Yes, sir.
can you read for us?
Yes, sir. You can also move data directly into a computer using a range of input devices. The most common is a pointing input device called a mouse. As you move it along a flat surface, the pointer on the screen moves in the same direction. If the mouse has two buttons, the left one is um, yeah, used to select items such as text, and the right one is used to access menus. The mechanical mouse has a rubber ball underneath to help it roll smoothly in all directions. The optical mouse uses light to track its movements. The cordless mouse is not physically connected to the computer but instead uses infrared or radio waves to communicate with the computer.
Good. So we have cordless. Use that. Good. So the mouse, another manual input device. So some of you are using a mouse right now. For those of you who may not know, this is what a mouse looks like. And if you were to search for this one here, this is a mouse, but not the one that we regularly use with our computer, usually in our home also. But these are what some mouse would look like, computer mice would look like.
There's a mouse to destroy the computer.
They're trying to help the computer. So that there is a mouse. Now, what is the purpose of the mouse? Well, once again, it's a manual input device. So the mouse is also called a pointing input device. Because if you think about it, when you move the mouse, you are moving a cursor on the screen. So this cursor that I have on the screen right now, it is moving because I am moving the mouse. So technically, it is as though I am pointing with this cursor. I am moving the cursor to point wherever I want to basically interact wherever I want to interact with. So the mouse is considered a pointing device, a pointing input device, because you're moving that cursor to point at different locations on the screen so that you can interact with it. Now it moves along a flat surface, so if you ever notice that your mouse does not function properly, you have to check the surface that you are using. The surface must be flat in order for it to function effectively, for it to function properly. And however you move the mouse, the pointer on the screen moves in that same direction. Now the mouse has two buttons. It has the left button. It can have more buttons, but a mouse would regularly have, so like this one here, it can have more buttons on the side or on the top, but the two main buttons a mouse will have is that left and right button. So it's important to know what those two buttons function as. The left button is used to select items. So when you want to click on something, when you want to select something, that is the left button you are using. When you want the access menu, that is when you use the right button. So anywhere you right click, I'm on the pencil right now, so anywhere you right click, you are going to get a menu. You're always going to get a different, it's not going to always be different, but you're always going to get a menu giving you additional options and features and so on. Now, there are basically three types of mouse. We have the mechanical mouse. The mechanical mouse has a rubber ball inside of it that allowed you to use the mouse to navigate to a point in different direction. So if we search for a mechanical mouse, hopefully we don't get a robotic mouse. So this is what a mechanical mouse looks like. It has this rubber ball inside of it, and this rubber ball rolls across the table surface. So It rolls across the table surface, and that movement is what is detected by the computer, and the cursor would move in the computer. The other type of mouse is the optical mouse. Now, this is what you guys might be using right now, because the mechanical mouse, it would have been phased out. The rubber ball would have actually been picking up dirt over time, and it made it difficult to use. You would have constantly have to be cleaning it. So they moved over to light. The optical mouse, which uses light to track the movement. So this is why if you ever use the mouse on a reflective surface, you guys ever try that? Use it on a reflective surface? Did it work? No one? Well, if you ever try to use the optical mouse on a reflective surface, it will not work, because the light actually needs to reflect back into the mouse in order to work. So that's going to be like what you're seeing on the right hand side here. It has a red laser, or some might have a different color. And then lastly, we have the cordless mouse, which uses some sort of wireless signal. It's going to be the same optical mouse, but just that it's going to connect using some form of infrared or radio wave to connect to the computer. But the main thing to remember is that it is a manual input device. So whenever you have to input, you have to move the mouse and you have to click on the buttons. So we're 3 minutes beyond time. So in review of what we looked at today, we looked at what is an input device. We looked at the 2 categories of input devices. We're starting with manual, and we looked at 3 examples so far: the keyboard, the keypad, and the mouse. So if you guys don't have any questions, we're going to end here for today. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.